I want to bring in Dan Senor. He was a senior advisor to the Romney-Ryan presidential campaign in 2012, and he joins us now from Washington.
Good morning.
Dan, good to see you. Let's begin with Attorney General Sessions. The Justice Department says his answer in his confirmation hearing about contact with the Russian ambassador was not misleading because his communication wasn't in relation to the campaign. What do you make of that explanation?
So, based on what we know, it sounds plausible to me. And let me preface that by saying that I think the administration has to get to the bottom of explaining what all these communications were generally between the Trump campaign and the Russian government. But the then Senator Sessions' communications seem pretty innocuous to me. I mean, a U.S. senator, particularly one on the Armed Services Committee that he served on, meets with tens of 20s of ambassadors in any given year. I worked for a U.S. senator who was on neither the Armed Services Committee nor the Foreign Relations Committee. And he himself, I recall, having meetings with ambassadors all the time. They are typically perfunctory meetings, sort of checking the box. It's not clear that he was meeting with the Russian ambassador on behalf of the Trump campaign to discuss Trump campaign information or issues. So that part is questionable. And then secondly, in order to violate the law related to testifying before Congress, my understanding of the law is that you have to knowingly, sort of willfully, be misleading Congress. It doesn't sound like he was, because he thought his meeting was innocuous and not related to the campaign. And the substance of what you're lying about has to be very relevant to any kind of sort of ongoing investigation or the focus of the questioning from the committee. Also doesn't appear to be the case here. So look, I think, again, I think the administration has to get to the bottom of this Russia issue. I don't think Attorney General Sessions is the problem here, and I think the Democrats' push to get him to resign is a stretch.
The fact that 27 members, the Washington Post looked in and found 27 members of the Armed Services Committee they had spoken to, not even John McCain had spoken to this ambassador in the past year. Do you think that's significant? And do you think that these top Democrats, including Nancy Pelosi, who are calling for him to resign, do you think those calls will be heeded?
No, I don't think they will be. First of all, like I said, all these senators, including John McCain, who I have great respect for, meet with a lot of ambassadors. The fact that John McCain didn't meet with, and some of these other senators didn't meet with the Russian ambassador doesn't tell me that much. Senator McCain, with good reason, has a very, shall we say, adversarial relationship with the government of Russia. So I'm surprised that neither the Russian ambassador would want to meet with Senator McCain or vice versa. And I think that applies with a lot of the other senators. I just don't think Senator Sessions has had that kind of tense relationship with the Russian government. I'm not passing judgment one way or the other whether or not he should have that kind of relationship. But I don't think that tells you much. And as I said earlier, look, here's what's going to happen over the next year, right? We are going to have a big heated debate and vote over a successor to Justice Scalia with the Justice Gorsuch nomination to the Supreme Court. The Republicans are trying to figure out how they're going to handle repeal and replace of Obamacare. Then the Republicans have to move to tax reform. All these things have to happen in the next year. And they're mostly intra-Republican fights. The Democrats are pretty marginal to all this because the Republicans maintain majorities in the House and the Senate. And so if Republicans can get all their ducks in a row and get their party unified, they're going to be able to move on all these major initiatives in the next year. And the Democrats won't really be part of the process. So they are looking for ways to throw sand in the gears, to slow things down. And the Sessions' alleged false testimony becomes a way to do that. And I don't think it'll ultimately go anywhere.
Dan, given these new revelations, do you think that the investigation ultimately ends up in the hands of a special prosecutor, something that Lindsey Graham suggested yesterday during a town hall, or will the administration continue to dig its heels in?
Look, that is a great question. I think those pushing for resignation are overreaching. I think that some on the right, as you point out, Senator Graham and others, are talking seriously about recusal. And the pressure could be intense on that. That area is a little more ambiguous in terms of what triggers the need for a special prosecutor. And obviously the administration has to participate in that decision. And I think they're going to be reluctant to do it. But the pressure could become so intense at some point that they have to.
Separately, Dan, there was a New York Times report last night detailing ways in which the Obama administration officials actually scrambled to try and save some of this Russia-related material and move it over to intelligence agencies, even abroad, before the Trump administration took office. Do you think that the revelations in this report are much of a surprise? And what do you think the implications? What does this mean for this kind of activity?
I think the big story here is what I've said on CBS before, the bureaucratic insurrection in the United States government against the Trump, against President Trump and his team. There are these sort of very seemingly coordinated leaks and coordinated efforts from some in the intelligence community, and clearly some former officials from the Obama administration before they left office, to put enormous pressure on President Trump and his team. And I think that's what you're seeing. It's not a shock to me that within 48 hours of a speech that President Trump gave that, received a lot of universal high praise, that we have two stories out. One, the one you just cited, and the other one, the Jeff Sessions story, or the allegations against Jeff Sessions. I don't think these things happen by accident. I think there's an effort within the permanent bureaucracy in the United States government, some elements within the permanent bureaucracy, I would say not all of them, and not even most of them, but there are some pockets that are sort of protesting, if you will, against President Trump in their own way. And they have a lot of relationships in the press. They have a lot of relationships on Capitol Hill. They have a lot of information, and they have more time, meaning they're going to be around in government a lot longer than President Trump will be, just by nature of their jobs. They are not term limited, and their ability to react to a president that they have a problem with for whatever reason, and I've seen this, I served in the Bush administration, I saw this a lot, is considerable. And so I think it's a problem, and the administration has to get a handle on it.
All right, Dan Senor in Washington. Thanks for joining us, Dan.
Good to be with you.